Thanks for joining us, and I think you'll really appreciate the conversation that will be taking place today. Let's, if we can, get to our first guest. We're going to be talking about Reflections for the Grieving Soul. Mike Nappa, he is an award-winning author, Arab-American, editor of a number of Christian books, holds master's degrees in English and Bible and theology with a bachelor's degree in Christian education. He, for many years, was co-authoring books with his wife, Amy, before she lost her battle to cancer in 2016, which is why we're talking about this new book with Zondervan, Reflections for the Grieving Soul, Meditations and Scripture for Finding Hope After Loss. And Mike, thank you for joining us today here on Point of View.
Kirby, thanks for having me.
I would love to hear the story. I know more of it because I've gone through the entire book, but really this is a really powerful book because some books kind of try to sugarcoat this, but there are sections on drowning, kicking, screaming, hoping. So this is a book that if you have lost a loved one, it could be a spouse, it could be a child, could be, a friend, neighbor, coworker, whatever, is a very helpful book, and yet is really put together in large part from some of the things that your wife had written. But give us the background, if you might.
Yeah, so my wife, as you said, she passed away from cancer in 2016, September 2016, so just about 7 years ago. And I found that after she died, there was about 2 weeks between Amy's death and the funeral, and in those 2 weeks, I was just surrounded by this great cloud of people who supported me and loved me and encouraged me, and they were wonderful. And then we had the funeral, and the funeral was beautiful. About 400 people came, and we celebrated Amy's life, and it was a wonderful thing. And then the next day, those people all went back to their real lives, which was normal, which was appropriate. They were supposed to get on with their lives. But I found myself stuck alone in this sudden place where I had no idea what to do or how to get through. And so finally I went onto Facebook and I said to my friends, look, I'm really struggling. I need help. So what I'm going to ask from you is for you to send me your favorite scriptures, the ones that you turn to when you're facing difficult times, when you're facing hardship, the things that encourage you. And they did. They sent me, I think I ended up with like 135 scriptures. Amy had left me some in her journals, and I had some of my own. And I printed those all out. I put them on 3x5 cards, and I started reading them every day. I'd read one a day, and I'd read it in the morning when I woke up. I'd read it in the mid-morning when I was crying. I'd read it in the afternoon, the evening. I'd read it as many times as I felt like I needed it. So 8, 10 times, 12 times a day. And those really supported me. And in those times, I also started, because I didn't have anybody to talk to, nobody really wanted to hear about how sad I was. So I started writing out my thoughts and prayers and things to God, and that became the basis for this book, Reflections for the Grieving Soul.
It's so well written, by the way, and your section on what grief feels like. And of course, you talk about having discovered her journals and putting a lot of that information there. I thought you really just surfaced two issues that I thought would be very helpful as sort of application points. Number one, there is a need, of course, to surround individuals that have lost a spouse, a child, maybe even a grandparent, aunt, uncle, whatever. And I've had sometimes people say, well, I couldn't get to the funeral. I said, you can do a great ministry by waiting about a week or two and then getting involved, because there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of food, there's a lot of fellowship, and then nothing. So first of all, you talked about that emptiness afterwards. I have suggested that if you really want to have a ministry in the lives of individuals, wait till all the activity is over, when it's quiet, when it's painful, when grief really sets in. So that was the first issue. And the second one I think I've already sort of alluded to, and that is the value of a journal. You begin by even having this little quote from Amy in her journal entry, May 1st, 2016. Sometimes writing about that and understanding that are key. I do want to kind of break this down a little bit more, because what you do is you provide us with lots of very helpful verses, also prayers that we can pray, and this is something that would be very helpful to anybody who is really kind of struggling. And if you haven't lost a loved one, you will. If you've lost a loved one, you're still dealing with it. This is a book that I think I would really want to recommend to you. And I appreciate your vulnerability, your honesty, and all sorts of aspects of that as well. So the book is just out. It's a way in which you can find out a little bit more about it. I would imagine, because it's published with Zondervan, you can find it in your local bookstore. But if not, click on that button that says Read More, and it is the information about this, and it gives you all the information you would want to know about that. And Mike, when you talk about some of these issues of grief, and you're very poignant in understanding and explaining that, it, I think, sets aside this idea that, well, they're in a better place, everything is just fine, because you have sections called drowning, kicking, and screaming. And that's one of the things I appreciate about your book, because you take a honest and realistic look at what it's like to lose a loved one, even if you know, quote, they're in a better place.
Yeah, the thing that I found after Amy passed away, there were so many people who wanted to fix me. They wanted me to cheer me up and make me all better. Even about 3 years after Amy died, I went to the doctor just for an annual physical. And, nowadays they ask those questions about your emotional state. And at one point I said, well, I still feel sad because my wife passed away from cancer. And the doctor said, well, when was that? I said, 3 years ago. And she scoffed at me. She said, oh, well, what you need is electroshock therapy on your brain to get over your grief. And I was like, wait a minute. I loved my wife for 30 years. Why would I stop missing her after only 3? And I feel like this is something that we struggle with in our society. We're actually afraid of grief and afraid of that sorrow that comes from love. And I had to just be honest about that. The thing with grief is you're probably never going to get over it. You will get back to your normal routines, your work, your life, your family, all those things. And but if you have loved, grief is an expression of that love. You don't grieve that which you did not love. And so if you have loved and love is forever, you're probably going to grieve forever. And so I came to the point where I realized, it's not important for me to get over losing Amy. What's important for me is to grieve her well. Right. So when people ask me about this book, they say, is this like 29 steps to get over grief or 7 prayers to get grief out of your life? I'm like, no. This book is not about that at all. This book is about helping you to grieve well, to accept the fact that grief is normal, and to give you someone who will walk next to you as you go through those pains and heartaches of grief that last longer than the supposed stages of grief, that last longer than the funeral, that last longer than the weeks or months or years. This book is something that's supposed to help you learn how to accept that grief can be a healthy, normal, beneficial thing for you.
And again, any child can tell you what is the shortest verse in the New Testament, and again, we all understand that that is part of that process as well. Along the way, I thought I would occasionally mention something from her journal, one that came out in May. I'm an overdue library book waiting to be returned to its rightful owner. There are some really poignant thoughts by you, but also you've shared many of her journal entries. And so as people go through this, you're giving people an opportunity to read maybe a little bit of a devotional perspective. Then you have like a prayer for that day, and then some other aspects of that. Sometimes it's a prayer, sometimes it's a verse, sometimes it's a number of verses. And so as a result, you're really helping people through the grief process while at the same time honoring her and the contribution she's made, if you will, post-mortem to this book.
Yeah, she was a very special woman. I was married, almost 30 years. She passed away about just a few weeks before our 30th anniversary. And I always have to tell people that Amy and I were not just married; we were happily married. We just got along. We were knit together. Our souls were knit together, and so she was kind of the big thing for me. That before she died, you experienced a thing called anticipatory grieving, and she, for me. People would tell me when she was dying, oh, it's obvious you're her rock and, you're really helping her. And I could say, no, actually, she's the one who is helping me. Mm-hmm. She's the one who is making me strong. She is the one who's doing everything for me. She was never worried about dying. She was never worried about death. She knew what that entailed. And honestly, we both, when we got married, we knew that one of us was going to die before the other one. We did have in our vows, after all, till death do us part. The only thing that she worried about was me and how I was going to get through it. And she used to tell me, she used to say, Mikey, in order to get through this, you're just going to have to go through it. And I have such admiration for her as well as love. I feel like other people may not ever really understand the kind of closeness and knitted souls that we had, and I just appreciate that I got to live with her for 30 years.
I know. You've got a section in the back where you have a letter to Amy. Would you recommend that? Because, of course, this one was written back September 7th, 2016, while she is really struggling in those last few days before she dies. But it does seem to me that sometimes there's a therapy, not only in the fact that she had a journal, but you, in writing this book and writing a letter to her, that was part of the grieving process as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the reason I put that letter in there was because I wanted people to understand that it's never too late to speak that which you feel. When I wrote that to Amy, it was about 4 days before she passed away. She was in a coma. I don't even know if she could hear me or not.
Yes, right.
But it was important for me to put down in writing what she had meant to me. And I got to be honest with you, I wrote it down, and then I was scared to read it to her, because I knew as soon as I read it to her, then that meant that I was really coming to the end of her life, and I wasn't ready for that. And so I waited probably I think I read it to her on September 10th. There was a moment we were alone in the hospital room, and I read it to her, and it just really, there was nothing in there that I hadn't said to her already when she was living, but it was important for me to memorialize to her what she had meant. And when it came time to do this book, I wanted to put that in the book, because I know I've been talking to people who say, I wish I had said this, I wish I could have told her that. And I want you to know it's not too late. You can still memorialize your feelings and your thoughts toward that person in print. And, I don't know if Amy can read that in eternity. Maybe she can, maybe she can't. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I expressed it. And what matters is that you, too, can express to the one you loved and put it into a fixed form what you appreciate, what you took from her or him, the things that are important about that person to you.
Yes. You also have an afterwards I thought I'd mention as well, because you have a perspective that took place 6 years after her death. And, of course, now we're coming to the 7th year. And so there's just a lot of very practical material that is available. It is published by Zondervan. I suspect you should be able to find it in your local bookstore. But if not, let me also encourage you to follow the link that we have. But, Mike, for just a minute, I might also mention that if people go to nappaland.com, and that's Nappa with 2 P's. There were all sorts of other resources. First of all, they'll get to know you a little bit better. For people that are writers and want to learn some things, I know, for example, you've got 77 reasons why your book was rejected and all sorts of other great material. So if people wanted to connect with you, maybe they'd want to have you come and speak on this book or learn a little bit more about some other aspects of your publishing ministry. That's available on the website. So talk about what is available on the website as they go to nappaland.com.
Yeah, they'll find all of those things and some information about the literary agency. There's a contact page. If they want to contact me directly, they can fill out that form, and that'll send an email to me directly. And then there's also a section called Bible Smart, where I just answer questions that people have asked me about the Bible and about things that they have questions about, particularly in the Gospels. So I welcome you to come to the website. I'd be glad to see you there.
Again, Reflections for the Grieving Soul. We're never really ready to lose someone that we love, but this is a collection of many of those key verses that we've talked about, some of the personal reflections from Mike, some of the journal entries from Amy, and just a resource that I think would be very helpful to you. So if you're going through the grieving process, let me just encourage you to grab this book. It's not full of, 5 steps or 17 steps to get over your grief. It's really just an honest look at what takes place in the grieving process. And if you certainly know somebody that would benefit from this, we have information about that on the website as well. So, Mike, I appreciate the fact that you've written such a very significant book, have been so vulnerable and so honest about your own experience, and I know that it's going to help many of our listeners here on Point of View.
Well, I sure hope so. Thanks, Kirby. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you appreciated our conversation today. For more information on what we talked about, check out the links in the description of this episode or go to our website, pointofview.net. If you like this episode, follow us, tell a friend, and rate us so that we can continue bringing you the best highlights from Point of View. We'll see you next time right here on Point of View Highlights.